Brandon Duran loved motorcycles more than anything in the world. He dreamed of being a devoted father to his son, building a life filled with love and stability. Yet, life had other plans. The very people he loved most, his wife and son, would eventually turn against him, shattering his dreams and his life in ways no one could have imagined. Brandon Duran was born on the 24th of June, 1980, to Cynthia and Mark Duran. His parents' marriage didn't last, and after their divorce, they agreed on joint custody. Brandon spent his childhood moving between New Mexico, where his father lived, and San Diego, where his mother, stepfather, and younger brother Garrett had settled. In school, Brandon was a calm and sweet child. He didn't seek attention or crave the spotlight, but as he grew older, everything changed. By his teenage years, Brandon had transformed into a fearless, rebellious young man. He listened to heavy rock, dressed to turn heads, and never hesitated to defend his opinions with his fists if necessary. Garrett, 5 years younger than Brandon, looked up to him, wanting to emulate his older brother in every way. Despite living in different cities, the bond between the brothers remained unbreakable. Garrett described Brandon as a natural leader, a man whose personal qualities inspired respect and admiration. Brandon was also a talented snowboarder, with dreams of going professional. At 18, he moved permanently to San Diego to chase those ambitions. But it wasn't just sports that shaped him. His father, Mark, was an avid motorcyclist and a former member of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club, which the FBI had labeled a criminal organization. Brandon grew up surrounded by bikes and bikers, spending countless hours in the garage learning to disassemble and rebuild motorcycles. He loved the hands-on work, the sense of freedom and power that motorcycles represented. Despite his tough exterior, Brandon was a kind and positive man. He dreamed of finding the right partner and creating a stable, loving family for his future children, something he had longed for as a boy torn between two homes. Tragedy struck in 2005 when Brandon's father unexpectedly died from a blood disease after a routine liver biopsy. The sudden loss devastated Brandon. Mark had been more than a father. He was a mentor, a friend, and the man who had instilled in him a love of motorcycles and craftsmanship. The grief left Brandon empty, and he fell into a deep depression, abandoning snowboarding and other passions. In memory of his father, he even handmade an urn for Mark's ashes, keeping it close at home. Unable to stay in California, Brandon moved to Las Vegas, seeking solace among his father's biker friends. He found work in construction and immersed himself in the biker lifestyle. Though he never fully joined the Bandidos, he bought a custom chopper with his name embroidered on the seat, a symbol of his father's legacy and his own love for motorcycles. In Las Vegas, Brandon's life took a fateful turn. At a biker event, he met Amber Andrews, a 4-year-old tattoo artist. She was captivating, mysterious, bold, and uninhibited. Brandon felt an instant connection, believing Amber had been sent into his life to help him heal. A hopeless romantic, he was seeking a life partner, not a fleeting romance. Within 2 months, the couple married on the 6th of June, 2006, choosing the date for its symbolic significance in biker culture, 3 6s, representing friends forever friends, rather than any sinister meaning. The wedding was unconventional. Amber wore a black dress she had sewn herself, which made Brandon's mother uneasy. Yet, Brandon defended his choice, focused on the woman he loved rather than appearances. At the time of the wedding, Amber was already pregnant, and Brandon eagerly anticipated becoming a father. On the 15th of December 2006, the couple welcomed their son, Brando Marcos Duran, named in honor of Brandon and his late father. Parenthood brought new challenges. Amber struggled with the demands of caring for their infant, while Brandon worked tirelessly to support the family. The strain of isolation led Amber back to her party lifestyle. She began going out frequently, leaving Brando in Brandon's care or under the supervision of a nanny. Her drinking escalated, and her behavior became erratic. One day, in a fit of rage, she even threw Brandon's father's ashes onto the ground during a fight. Police intervention temporarily separated them, but Brandon forgave her, hoping to preserve their family for the sake of their son. For a while, Amber appeared to change. She spent time with her family, played with Brando, and fulfilled her role as a mother. Yet, the reprieve was short-lived. Soon, she returned to partying, lying to Brandon, and neglecting parental responsibilities. The marriage continued to deteriorate, and by 2010, after 4 years, Brandon and Amber divorced. They shared custody of Brando, alternating weeks between each parent. Life seemed to settle, at least temporarily. Brandon devoted himself to his son, teaching him snowboarding, motorcycles, and music. But in 2012, Amber re-entered their lives, claiming she wanted a second chance. Blinded by hope, Brandon agreed, wanting to reunite his family. They planned a trip to Oklahoma to retrieve some belongings before Brando started kindergarten. What Brandon didn't know was that this trip would be his last. On the 7th of August 2012, Brandon and Amber set off together in a truck with Brandon's motorcycle in the bed. That evening, Brandon never returned home. The next day, a man named Van Emblem reported to the sheriff in southern Oklahoma that he had helped a friend dispose of a dead body the night before. Van Emblem, seeking immunity, revealed that Justin Hammer, Amber's boyfriend, had confessed to shooting someone and needed help removing the body. Authorities discovered buckets of cement-filled human remains in Hammer's home. The remains were identified as Brandon Duran. Hammer admitted to killing Brandon, claiming self-defense. He said Brandon had threatened him over his relationship with Amber. According to him, he shot Brandon with both a shotgun and a pistol, then dismembered the body, poured the parts into buckets, added cement, and dumped them into a pond. The police also found Brandon's motorcycle had been disassembled and given to a relative. Hammer's story seemed rehearsed. Investigators discovered a handwritten list in his gun safe with items like a hacksaw, buckets, bleach, and a tarp tools clearly intended for disposing of a body. Security footage corroborated Hammer's premeditation, showing him purchasing the listed items the day before the murder. It became clear this was not an act of self-defense, but a carefully planned ambush. Amber's role soon came under scrutiny. The handwriting on the list matched hers, implicating her in the murder. Text messages and cell phone data placed her at Hammer's house during the critical hours when Brandon was killed. Witnesses revealed that Amber had orchestrated the events, using her relationship with Hammer to lure Brandon to his death under the guise of reconciliation. The motive was chilling, a custody battle, and a desire for revenge. In September 2015, Amber Andrews was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Despite her attempts to maintain an innocent, carefree facade, evidence of her involvement was overwhelming. Her trial began in April 2017. Testimonies and recordings confirmed her presence and complicity in the murder. She had deliberately manipulated both Brandon and Hammer to execute a deadly plan. The jury took only 5 hours to convict Amber Andrews. She was sentenced to life without parole for first-degree murder, with an additional 17 years for conspiracy and desecration of Brandon's body. Her appeal was denied, ensuring she would remain imprisoned for life. The aftermath left Brando Marcos Duran orphaned. Initially placed in a children's shelter, he was later entrusted to his grandmother, Cynthia. She dedicated herself to preserving his memory of his father while providing him with stability and love. The family endured a loss that could never be repaired, reflecting the devastating consequences of manipulation, betrayal, and violence. Despite the tragedy, Brandon's story did not end entirely in despair. His son, Brando, grew up surrounded by the love of his grandmother and extended family, who worked tirelessly to ensure he remembered his father not as a victim, but as a man of courage, passion, and integrity. Brandon's love for motorcycles, music, and snowboarding became a bridge to connect Brando to the father he would never truly know. Friends and relatives often recounted stories of Brandon's kindness, humor, and dedication, keeping his memory alive. In this way, even in death, Brandon's life continued to inspire those who loved him, reminding everyone that love and legacy can survive even the darkest of betrayals. Brandon Duran's life, once full of promise, passion, and love, ended tragically at the hands of the woman he trusted most. He had survived the death of his father, weathered personal struggles, and sought only to give his son a happy childhood. Yet, human deceit and cruelty proved more dangerous than any adversity he had faced before. His story serves as a chilling reminder of the fragile nature of trust and the destructive potential of betrayal. If you've stayed until the end, you are a true fan of crime stories. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a like. Stories like Brandon's show that the darkest motives can hide behind the most familiar faces, and justice, while often delayed, eventually arrives.